has a lot of rationality around it, but the core essence of a Sikh is not based on a rational acceptance of the Guru, but it's based on the love of the Guru. And the Guru actually puts that in his own words. He said, listen everybody, I speak the truth. Only those who love will find God. So the Guru becomes the person you fall in love with. We've got a lot of history of this.
I empathize with that.
The religion is not that old.
Yeah,
you can say 1,000 years ago, 2,200 years ago. And within that 200 years, we've got all this philosophy, teachings, the actual places they live, what they said, what they did, their own writings. So with the Gurus, historically, we're quite blessed in that sense. That we know they were around. They weren't just somebody made it up. We know what they wrote. We know what they did. We've got people, families and generations that are still now linked to the Guru lineage who are around. So historically, we're blessed. And then obviously, spiritually, they're very blessed.
So it seems to me that the answer to my question that I needed some kind of rational grounding still is contingent on an emotional, spiritual thing, right? An experiential. You said that it's love. It's love, trusting him because it's through love, and understanding his teachings, internalizing his teachings. I'm not dismissing it. I find that very profound. Don't get me wrong. I think for it to be slightly more holistic, and it's one of the reasons why I became Muslim is because not only do you have what you call the nafsiyah, the internal psychological disposition, the spirituality, the ethics, the rules and stuff like that, the experiences, but you also have it grounded in a rational tradition. And I find that powerful.
I think the thing here is
does that make sense to you?
I'll just explain. I've watched nearly all your videos to the rational argument for God and found them lacking. That's my personal view. I don't want to be offensive to you by just giving you one. And the thing is I think that you've got some standard inside you that's trying to say it's got to be rational. But that rational standard doesn't really even stand up. Your own arguments don't stand up to that standard. So here's my view.
Why do you think that's the case?
Because I watched your videos and they didn't really make me believe in God. If I was an atheist, I wouldn't believe in God based on those arguments.
Absolutely.
So I don't think that you can argue that you've got a rational viewpoint that can convince
I totally appreciate what you're saying.
Because a lot of people watch your videos and don't believe the comments.
Of course.
So when you say rational, it seems to imply transferability to everybody. That it must be something so rational that most rational people would agree with it.
Okay,
but I don't think
let me give you the premise here, right? We believe in the fitra, the natural disposition that we know God exists and He deserves to be worshipped. This is the natural disposition, right? We have this. We have this innate nature, this natural disposition that we appreciate the oneness of God, we appreciate that God deserves to be worshipped, right? Now this is the fitrah, it's called the innate disposition. Imagine it like a glass.
We talked about this earlier.
Yeah,
that's not a new point.
Yeah, but I want to bring it to this point. And what we say is, if this glass is clouded or dirty, it requires cleaning. Cleaning can include rational arguments, can include the Quran, the Sunnah, spiritual teachings, ethics, experiences, right? So it cleans the fitrah.
What's new in there?
Yeah, exactly. No, what's new is you've assumed that I'm using the argument as an end, not a means. Arguments are a means just to clean the fitrah.
Right.
And what I want to is take you up a point. I totally appreciate you have an opinion on what old debates or whatever rubbish I used to talk about, right? But the point is, it is a claim. My question was, why aren't they coherent enough for you? That was my view, that was my point. But that's going to go to another topic which is irrelevant.
That's kind of like you're judging me now on my rationality and
No, I'm saying you said that they weren't rational enough, and I'm just asking
I'm just saying
why.
about your standard, because what you said to me now is very similar to what I would say to any Sikh. So if you want to get into Sikhi and you like what the Gurus are teaching, then go into the Gurdwara, listen to explanations of the scripture, sit in the holy congregation, chant God's name. What that will do is slowly wash your soul, what we were talking about earlier, and allow that light inside to come out and have an experience.
I agree, we have
and when that
similarities.
experience happens, then you will have a real faith, because it'll be based upon the experience of God. Before that, you've still got doubt because you're not quite sure. When that experience happens to you, that's it. It's happening to you right now. It ties in with what every single of the 36 people that wrote in Guru Granth Sahib Ji have also said. So it ties in. It's not just the Gurus, it's the people that weren't even the Gurus, like Ram, Kabir Ji and Ravana. These people, it ties in with them. So then it gives you a sort of external confirmation that it's not just the Gurus, it's everybody else who's also, some people before the Gurus, like Sheikh Farid is before the Gurus, other people are after the Gurus, so not after the Gurus, but obviously they're the Gurus' time. And it can also tie in with the people that have since then lived as Sikhs, earned the Sikh teachings, and experienced the same divine. So it becomes, and it ties in with mystics across the world.
Yeah, sure.
So, you know, the mystical tradition is not just a Sikh tradition. It's in the Sufis, like we had our brothers earlier, it's in the Sufis, it's in the Christians, it's all over the world. So what we're talking about is that looking at the world as a whole, it gives you that, you know what, I'm not just having a crazy experience that no one else has had before. This is an experience that's happened to loads of people of different traditions, and they all walk the same path, which to me is very rational to accept that as an argument for this, that you're not having a crazy experience, and the Guru is giving you grace.
I would disagree with that here. Why? Because if we just solely rely on the spiritual aspect, and we solely rely on the experiential aspect,
that is God.
Yeah, but
you can't just say just don't rely upon God to believe in God. No, believe in something else as well.
but
God is God.
But you already have a standard of God, and you're trying to fit your experiences through that
No, I have a
standard.
standard of God. I've got an experience of God. I'm not talking about standard of God. I'm just saying the experience of
But you're saying
God.
it's God, and you have an experience, and it reaffirms God. So you're starting with
You
an
have the
idea of
Guru's
God.
teaching,
Yeah.
taught by the Guru,
Yeah.
and then you put them into practice. He's like an instructor,
Yeah.
right? The word Guru actually is very similar to the idea of an instructor. So he's got
I'm
people
pretty sure that
decide-
you mentioned that before.
So it doesn't really make much sense to say to me, I don't think it's fair that you believe in your gym teacher because now after his teachings you've become fit and strong and now you've got faith in him. That's not fair. You looked at him first, you saw that he was fit, that's biased you to us trying his way, and now you tried it and you become fit and strong and now you've got faith in him. That means that you decided what was fit first.
Have you
You're
studied
right in a way. I
have you
decided.
studied philosophy?
You do know that. I do.
Oh, you have, yeah.
We
Okay,
do.
good. Okay, good. So, I did this for a postgrad, right? And what you would understand is that just because something works, it doesn't mean it's true.
Yeah, I agree.
So you have to appreciate
No,
that.
I agree.
So your whole
And
premise.
I gave you the other idea about the
Yeah, no, but
confirmation
let me
of
just
all the other
continue.
different faiths and understand that what you're going through is not just a Sikh thing, it's just mystics across the world.
Yeah, that's fine. That's if you believe that's grounded in some kind of rational truth. The point is, you have to understand that just because something works, it doesn't mean it's true. Like in the scientific method, for example, they had this theory called phlogiston. Phlogiston. It was in the 1700s. Now, phlogiston was very interesting because they said that any combustible object that burnt, it would release phlogisticated air. Now, that was a workable theory in the 1700s that chemists used, and Dan Rutherford in 1772 or 1773, he basically used that theory to discover nitrogen, discovered the truth. But then they find out later that that theory of phlogiston was false. So this is one example of many that in philosophy of science, just because something works, it doesn't mean it's true. Likewise in spirituality, just because something works, it doesn't mean it's true. And that's why I want you to find out what Sikhism is about, because everything you've said really, for me, and please correct me if I'm wrong, can be reduced to just an experiential thing, which is fine. It's very needed. Don't get me wrong. Islam is
Can I
very
answer the point
important.
now? Because I've understood the point. I don't need any more explanation. So,
You should let me talk as well, though. Yeah.
no. You spoke for quite a while. I know that you spoke for quite a while. But here's the point. Right?
You get that point? What I'm saying.
When you
Just
yeah,
because
I
it
do
works
understand.
doesn't
I'll
mean it's
explain to
true.
you how I understand that it's true. When I was studying philosophy at university, one of the things we talked about was actually this idea of experiential. How do you know what's true? So one of the arguments we make is, well, the color purple, right, is a subjective thing. It's not necessarily objective, right?
Yeah.
So one of the problems with
The experience of purple.
the experience of color, experience of anything,
Absolutely.
most things are purely subjective. You can't objectify them. So how they decide to go beyond this kind of Descartes philosophy where you're not Descartes, but kind of like you're living in your own solipsism, I think it's called.
Yes, solipsism.
And they're just living their own God and nothing else makes sense. Is they can't try to get to it through God. We try to get through it just by trying to think of it like logic, yeah? Like, even if I spend all day thinking, I can't prove that's purple. When I go home, I say to my wife, do you like this purple top? She knows it's purple, I know it's purple, everybody around me knows purple. If I spend my whole day working out, can I know it's purple or not? Maybe it's a different purple. I'm going to be basically wasting my time because it's kind of idiocy. Right? I said earlier, it's like if you assume that people are idiots, then yeah, they can't do that. But people aren't idiots, yeah? Because God hasn't made us to be idiots, because God's, the creator. So, taking that argument, when colour is subjective, in the same way you might say, well actually, colour may be subjective, but really it's quite objective, because most people tend to agree upon it. So you can generalise, otherwise you couldn't really live or survive.
Yeah, for some things,
So
absolutely.
in the same way, when I said to you earlier, when you have that experience of God, okay, it's
the same as the
A
colour
is
purple.
backed up by what the Guru is saying.
Yeah.
B is backed up by all the other people inside the Guru Granth Sahib that are not even Sikh. from the Sikh background.
But why is what the Guru say is true? That was my question from the beginning.
The point of it being true is that it works.
Yeah, but what works doesn't mean it's true.
But the fact that it works and it's worked consistently for different people of different faiths, different backgrounds, and the gurus, and that they say that
just like phlogiston, bro, it worked and it came out to be false.
No. The point here is that
Newton's laws work, but they're not absolutely true.
Here's the thing: until someone can,
do you see my point?
Until someone can disprove that the experience I'm having and what the gurus are saying is not true, right? I'm entitled to believe that.
Okay, there's two ways to disprove your experience hypothetically. Number one, with another experience, and that just becomes subjective. Or number two, by some external criteria, like reason or rationality.
Yeah, but that external criteria that you gave earlier about why you think rationally Islam is true.
I didn't give you any criteria.
No, but you've done it online too many times in arguments.
Yeah, but let's be fair, bro.
Let's be fair. Okay, fair enough.
Let's be fair. Let me just tell you something. This is nasiha, advice to you, right? Never in a conversation with someone refer to the old work, especially when you're not even saying what is wrong about it. That's a bit unfair. Nope. And I would say not part of the ethics of discussion. I could say to you, bro, I saw a video of you talked about Abdurrahman Green 2 years ago in a video, and you know what, you're slightly incoherent here. I think it's bad adab, bro. Yeah, but you haven't even said what was wrong with it. That's my point. You just keep on saying it's wrong. You're not saying why it's wrong.
I did say to you why I thought it was wrong, because it didn't, as a rational person, convince me that there is a problem.
But that's not a statement, it's a claim. You need to tell me why is that claim true?
No, but surely, when you're saying rationality, you're pointing to an idea that someone who's rational listens to you and then goes, yeah, it's true. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
I do a physics experiment. I throw a ball off a cliff, it falls down, I have a camera that measures its speed, and then I say to people, I'll use this camera to measure the speed, and the ball fell at this speed. Every rational person would buy that. Only an irrational person would say no. So the arguments you presented, I don't have to go to specifics of each one. What I can say is rationally, they haven't worked. And the proof of that is not just me, is that many people have watched your work who are rational people and not bought it.
I'm going to hold on to you
but let me argue the opposite.
You're not saying why.
Many people
have become Muslim.
Let me finish.
Many people have found them rational.
True. But the other thing is,
so how is your claim?
Here's my argument. Many people have understood this rationality argument I'm talking about, that the experience is not just subjective. By taking the idea of colour, you can take the objectivity, apply it across the board, and look at other people of different faiths and backgrounds, and actually say, oh, you know what, this makes a lot of sense. It's actually the truth, and it's not just purely. But listen, here the point is, I haven't met a single person who's experienced the divine in the way that we just talked about. I met a guy earlier who was I don't know what he was.
Well, you've met me.
Oh, I know. But I don't know if you've had that experience. We haven't talked about that experience of what you've experienced.
Yeah, of course.
But this guy talked about his experience of God, and I talked about my experience.
Millions of people.
The point is, when he was agreeing with everything I'm talking about, because rationally it made sense to him.
Okay.
But the rationality comes from that lens of that spirituality.
Sure.
Any rationality,
I'm not denying that.
For me,
I'm
not
with you 100% on the spirituality issue, right? When I'm trying to deconstruct,
like the Sufi brothers, they're spiritual.
Absolutely.
They agree with us.
Absolutely.
Right. So,
well, I don't disagree with you about the innate nature and about spirituality and ethics and connecting with the divine. I'm with you here, right?
Yeah.
My only issue is the how you connect with the divine according to your tradition. Because you said you can't equate the experience of purple and knowing it's purple with a tradition that requires a whole set of teachings and experiences to understand its truth. Because purple you understand without any of those.
Okay. But I don't know if you're going too philosophical. But
okay,
it's hard to understand.
Is this blue?
Yes.
This is yellow.
Yes.
Good. This is the beautiful beard, right? MashaAllah. So you got beautiful beard. So we know it's a beard, it's blue, and it's yellow.
Yeah.
I don't need a set of intermediate experiences to understand that.
Yeah.
I don't need a whole philosophy, a theology to understand that, right? So you're falsely equating two things here. You can't equate. Let me explain. You can't equate the feeling of purple, the understanding that those are white trainers, with the fact that the Buddhist teachings are absolutely true. Because you even just said before, you need a bunch of experiences, you need the Buddhist teachings. So for me, you can't equate those two things as the same. Does that make sense?
Okay. I said to you earlier. It's
I'm
like-
just, for me, I'm just saying a lot of the things that you're saying are
Alright.
nice, they're
Let's say-
fluffy, but they're very incoherent.
Okay, no, they're not. I'll explain to you.
Yeah, sure.
You could be sitting in a dark room and you don't know about colours,
Yes.
right? Because like I said to you earlier, God is not something that
It's like the Frank Jackson experiment.
I don't
Maybe.
know who
Oh,
that guy is,
sorry.
but I'm making this up on the spot, right? So
You said you studied philosophy.
yeah,
so-
but I don't know who that guy is.
Okay, cool.
Do you understand that?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get back to it. So we're sitting in a dark room because, like Plato was talking about, the people in the cave, they don't know the truth.
Absolutely.
Right? So most people are unaware of God. Most people are totally separate from God.
Yes, yes.
So a person separate from God is very similar to someone sitting in a dark room.
Okay.
Right? Now, when they're in this dark room, you're trying to explain to them colour.
Yeah.
They're like, so black in here, bro.
They have to experience colour.
Yeah. So the person says, you can give me all this philosophy, mate, but I'm not going to believe in it until I see colour. Right? That doesn't mean that person is wrong for having trusted you that there is colour, because you've just come in from outside and told them all outside. They might have a doubt in your mind, in their mind, that, oh, is there colour or not? Is this guy just pulling it? You know, on me, it's always been dark while I've been around. But they said, you know what? I'll give you a proof. Why don't you hold my hand, come with me through that door, and I'll take you into colour. Now you can see colour. Now, it would not be fair to say that person is irrational to choose to follow that person.
Agreed.
It wouldn't be irrational. It would be a rational thing to say, you know what, why not try it? If that person, you've known them for a long time, they looked after you, they took care of you, they were very trustworthy, you would say, let's go for it, let's try. And then you go outside and voila, you see colour. And not only do you see colour, you see a whole bunch of other people walking around who also see colour.
Sure.
And they all agree that that is purple, and that is a yellow jumper, and that's a blue hoodie, and that's a nice beard.
Yes.
They all agree with you. So suddenly you think, hallelujah, it must be true. And that would not be an irrational person.
No, I agree.
Well, there we go.
But that's a solely experience.
And what we're talking about in the
No,
beginning, right?
well, no, but you just said something else. You have to remind what you said. You said you could experience any of the Guru's teachings. So coming back to my original question that you tried to answer was, how do you rationally ground the Guru's teachings?
Just said to you, it's like,
No, because you separated Guru's
you know, you've
teachings
got that
from
weird
experience.
argument, the 40
No.
Are we doing some circular kind of thing going on here?
No.
It feels like we're just going round and round. in
Allow
circles.
the ad hominems there.
Yeah.
I'm not cussing
Honestly.
you. Allow the cusses, right? Let's keep the adab.
No, but-
you're known to be a nice guy.
I'm trying to be nice.
And a bad
It's
guy
hard.
like me, I
I'm
don't want to
trying
shame you. I'm supposed to be the bad guy,
I'm
right?
not a nice guy. But
No,
let
you
me
are a
say-
nice guy.
No,
Listen
I'm
to me.
trying.
What I'm trying to say
to
to
be a
you
nice
is,
guy. I'm trying to listen to you.
Did you-
But I'll just
Yeah.
explain something I thought made sense to most people.
No,
but you've just gone back and said it doesn't make sense.
I just said it makes sense. No, it makes sense, but I'm trying to see how it makes sense within everything that you've said. So what you're saying is,
You agreed that guy was rational. In
he's
the dark
rational
room.
to a degree, but
Right.
if
So I'm the guy in the dark room. I'm the guy in the dark room.
Okay, but if that guy
right?
told you, therefore, there is no gravity after that, you're not going to trust him, right?
True, but the Guru
Exactly.
doesn't say anything lies to me.
But that's my point. My point is, for someone who doesn't accept Islam, right, is someone, he may know what colours look like, but it's like taking the guy at the dark room saying that's purple, and then the guy's trusting him because saying it's purple, but then it's saying, look at the horizon, the earth is flat. So just because I'm
Just
trusting...
because someone doesn't believe in Islam, then you're saying they're equivalent to somebody who could get told a lie later on, but they're not sure. It could never work out.
No,
if it's true.
sorry, you misunderstand what I'm saying. What I'm trying to say is, you can trust someone. If you're in a dark moment of your life and they've taken you out and said, look at colour, and this is the colour purple,
And it's
you can
worked.
trust them. But
you can't just trust
but
that one
can
person.
you
It's
tr-
that,
yeah,
it's that,
fine.
it's that what I talked about earlier, the rational element. It's not just
Yes,
one
but then
person.
can you trust him if he tells you something that is irrational? That's my point.
It's a good question. The question,
And that's what I've been trying to get
Okay,
at all along.
alright.
Because
So-
you distinguish between the experiences
let-
and the Guru's teachings.
let me go into something
You remember that
else.
70-30% thing that
Alright.
you mentioned about?
Okay.
And I've asked, can you ground the Guru's teachings as evidence? And you can't rely on experiences because you've disconnected them. So therefore, what is the evidence for the Guru's teachings? And you've spent quite a long time not doing that.
Here's the-
Just
I'll
keep
just-
on talking about
I'll explain
experiences,
to you.
which is a secular argument.
Let's say, for example, somebody comes into Sikhism who's not from a Sikh background or an Indian background,
Yeah.
so they're white. Yeah? They come in, they meditate, it's like experience God, right? And they believe in the Guru's experience about God. They buy that. They're cool. But then they've never heard about reincarnation, and they've got this philosophy. They think, I don't know if I can believe in this philosophy. Right? I have no proof of this and whatever, right? So fair enough. Now, the Guru says that Sikhi is about enlightenment. So it's not just one door when you open and you see colour. There's a whole bunch of other things that are going to happen afterwards as you go through more and more doors of enlightenment. A bit like...
And how do you know that's true?
Well, let me just explain. As you go through the cave analogy, right? You're coming out and out, and you're expanding your horizons and your doors of perception. Right? So initially, you might say, well, I'm not sure if reincarnation is true or not. However, based on what the Guru's told me so far, right, and I haven't experienced it, but I believe what he said so far, and I believe in the morals of the Guru so far. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reserve judgment on whether it's true or not. I'm going to trust the Guru. But the Guru does say it's possible for you to keep growing spiritually to the point where you can experience your previous lives. When you have that experience of your previous lives, voila, now you not only listened to it, followed it, but you've actually now accepted it to be true because you've seen it to be true.
Little experiences, basically.
Right, because the whole of Sikhi is about spirituality. Because at one point, the soul goes from somebody who's in a dark room to being somebody being totally one with God.
I've got it.
Totally one with God.
It's a very enlightening conversation.
It's all about growth.
So this is where maybe the subtle difference between Sikhism and Islam comes into play, right? Where Islam, from that point of view, has the whole concept of the fitrah, the innate disposition, ibadah, worship, which means to love God, to know God, to obey God, and to sing all acts of worship to Him alone. We have this kind of profound kind of theo philosophy, if you like, of this idea, concept, reality of the oneness of God, affirming His oneness, tawheed, in His names and attributes, in His singularity.
But give me some differences so far.
I'm connecting with you. So I think the differences here is that no matter where you go with your experiences, there's always going to be this very base grounding. Call it rationality, call it innate truth. I'm going to tell you what it is. No, I'm not. I don't want to say that. What I'm saying is that we would say Tawheed, the conceptualization of the divine, as per the Islamic tradition, is that foundation. So your experiences are seen through them. Because, for example, someone came up to me, a Christian, he said, I had a dream of Jesus, right? And a Jew could come up to me and say, I had a dream of Moses. And a Buddhist said, I had a dream of Buddha. Now, as a human being, I'm not going to deny his experiences. I mean, that's evil, right? Because you deny them. You deny your relationship now, right? What I do, though, and I try doing it in the most compassionate way, I say, look, the way to really understand your experiences is to understand the filter, the lenses that you use to see your experiences, right? So what I do then, I go to those filters and lenses. And that's very critical because many people have different experiences, but they have different truths. And that's fundamental, right?
So how do you reconcile that, you yourself?
So what I would say,
who's saying I had Buddha, other guys saying I had met Jesus, and then with Moses. How do you as an individual,
I would just teach him,
that actually in your heart, I'll ask a simple question, in your heart do you think that the dream was purely in their mind, but there's no other link to it, there's no external
No, we believe that,
do you believe Buddha is around?
There are three types of dreams. There are three types of dreams, for example. One type of dream is from the divine, one is based on musings and thoughts, and one is from basically the kind of negative realm, the satanic realities,
Shaitan.
right? Yeah, shaitan. So from that point of view, we do appreciate that dreams have a basis. But what I'm saying here is, how do you get them to see the experiences via the lenses of truth? And that's really
you've already decided.
Exactly. But then
I've got a lens of truth as well for me, the Guru. So I'm asking you now.
No, you're missing the point. Let me finish my point.
Simple question. Tell me how you see it.
Let me finish my point. I'll answer your question. My point here is, since you understand that people have experiences and you can filter them through different lenses, what you've solely given to me at the moment is just experiences, right? You haven't showed to me why your filters or lenses are true. And that's my point. Because I could talk about any form of spirituality and make it coherent because it's within that paradigm. What I'm saying to you, let's step out of the paradigm, right? Let's step out of the paradigm. We have certain lenses that you're viewing your narratives, your spiritual discourse, whatever you want to call it. And I'm saying what Islam does for me, and obviously we probably can't discuss this today, it takes a long time, that it gives me those filters. That's my point. The right filters.
But you've chosen a filter that makes sense to you on rationality.
Absolutely.
But that's a personal thing. There's often the case that two people can sit in a situation, okay?
Yeah, I agree.
Have the same
but I just mentioned this to show the difference between Islam and Sikhism.
I'm just giving you a simple point. Two people can sit there, have the same rational argument presented. One could agree, one could disagree.
Absolutely.
Right? So in which case, it's still subjective. So I don't know why you're so excited about the rationality being separate from the different constructs that already exist, the lenses.
Okay, there are two levels.
Effectively, what you just said when you agreed with me a minute ago is that ultimately it all comes back to subjectivism.
No, there are a few levels here. For example, I exist, right? and you exist.
But it wasn't always the case.
Agreed, but we exist at the moment, so there are some foundational truths that we agree on.
Yeah.
But if I said to you, what's your idea on, for example, panspermia? You'd be like, what is that? Exactly. But that has its own coherent argument via a scientific explanation. It might not have any empirical evidence, but it's an argument that's coherent. And you don't have to accept that, but it's still based on some rational criteria. Although we still agree on the rational basis of me and you existing, you still may not disagree with other rational truths. So it's not like, oh, let's throw the baby out with the bathwater. So what I'm talking about is some foundational truths. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense, but there's a big hole, I feel, in this whole thing, the elephant we're ignoring.
Sure.
That I'm not trying to give something objective to anyone to say that this is the objective way you can now totally prove it.
So you're saying
anybody.
So your
100%.
answer to your your answer to my original question was there's no objectivity behind the guru.
No, but I'm just interrupting you. I'm saying that life ultimately is subjective. And a minute ago, you actually agreed with me that even logical arguments that are very rational are still taken subjectively. What I'm trying to say is, when we see any kind of argument, the thing is, we're sitting in this crowd here because many other people listening to this, right? Could be Sikh or not Sikh. And there's been situations where, for example, I've had debates with other people where the argument that I'm making has seemed rational to those people. But on the other side, you've had people that have said that my argument makes no sense.
Or maybe they're irrational.
Well, the question here is, I'm not here to judge that person's rationality. What I'm saying is, as a general rule, you can't assume that just because one person sees something rationally, so I agree with that becomes then a general rule for everybody.
No, I agree. I don't disagree with that. Yeah,
ultimately, anything you present right now to say there's a rational argument for Islam will ultimately be subjective because some people might not buy it.
No, you're missing the point because people's experiences are not a yardstick to understand what is subjective, right?
Even people's understanding of logic isn't a yardstick.
Yeah, but
because some people don't understand it properly.
My
some people might
example,
make an argument which makes sense to them, but it doesn't make sense.
I think you're misunderstanding my example. My example of understanding that me and you exist at the moment, but we may rationally disagree with panspermia or some other theory, whatever it is, goes to show that yes, you're right to a certain degree that rational argumentation can lead to subjectivity or it can lead to
stem from subjectivity.
Yeah, it can. But my point is there is some foundational truths I'm talking about. Just like you exist and I exist.
Earlier on, you came from the point of the prism.
And they awaken the
you said the
part,
rational argument, the prism that you see the world through is from Tawheed, the belief in one God.
Yeah,
both of us have that. Both of us have that, but we have a very different
Well, it depends what you mean what Tawheed is though, isn't it?
Well, we believe in the one creator.
So it depends what you mean by Tawheed.
Alright, well, why don't you enlighten me?
Well, what's your version of oneness?
Oneness is
okay, well,
is the only truth.
Oh, sorry, can I do this?
Of course you can, man. So one the one creator who created, sustains and destroys, only doer, only being of any power that gives its power to everything else, the being who is without fear, without hate, and the one that is just the one source of everything. Yeah? So the question
that's not our understanding of
what's Tawheed for you?
Okay, but you uninterrupted though, please.
Sure, man,
yeah?
no problem.
Okay, good. So we believe that the creator is the sole creator, sustainer, and maintainer of everything that exists, right? That's one part of who he is, right? He also has names and attributes, right? For example, he's al-wudud, meaning the loving. Coming from the Arabic word wud, which means the loving that is given. He has an excessive, boundless love, right? He's al-Rahman, which means the intensely loving. It's a love that's boiling over. It's an immediate type of mercy, yeah? So these names and attributes, though, you cannot, for example, humanize them. What does that mean? You can't say God is the loving and I am the loving, right? Because you've humanized his names and attributes.
Is that in the philosophy of Tawheed?
Yeah.
That these characteristics of God cannot exist in a person?
Not in the same way. Not in the absolute same way. Like, for example, God is boundless in his love, infinite and eternal in his love, for example.
Right.
And he's the loving. I could be loving, but I can't be the loving. I'm not the divine, right?
But at a human level.
Yeah, of course I can be loving.
You're the most loving person in the world.
Absolutely.
But obviously you're restricted from the life you've got. 80
I'm
years
contingent.
or whatever. You can't love everybody because you don't know everybody.
I'm contingent.
You're just living where you are
right.
in London.
We're full of limitations, right? I'm contingent in my volume, size, space, experiences.
But in a limited way, a human being could become God-like them. What you're saying, it's agreed. But
we can be righteous, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We want to manifest those names and attributes, not in a divine way, in a human way, right? So that's good.
So we agree so far.
I haven't finished. Quite. That's why I said don't interrupt. Yeah. So we have his names and attributes that you can't deify, right? You can't deify me, right?
Yeah, you can.
And you can't, therefore you can't humanize his names and attributes by saying God is the loving and I am the loving. And at the same time, you can't deify a limited creature like myself. You can't say Hamza.
Is that part of Tawheed?
Yeah, Hamza's love.
Where is it written down? Is that?
First, let me describe it and I'll give you everything, yeah? You can't say Hamza's love is like God's love, right? You can't deify me. That's deification. So there's no humanization, there's no deification. Does that make sense so far?
Okay.
Good. And then the other aspect is what you call his tawheed of divinity, the oneness of his divinity. And this is maybe where we may disagree. Where we would say that the divine, he is the one only worthy of worship. What does worship mean? To love God, to know God, to obey him, and to single all acts of worship to him alone. So what we're saying is that there's no intermediary in that worship in any shape or form, right? So grace comes only from God. Forgiveness comes only from God. Mercy comes only from God. There are no intermediaries from that point of view. If you want to connect with God, we don't say there is a wall or a book or Jesus. What we say is you connect straight with the divine. So this is what it means.
Could be a long lecture. I'm sure you can do an hour and not
No, I mean, I just said come on, let's be nice. You've talked for a long time. Maybe 85% of what I've talked. 70. You just need to let me. You just need to let me finish, yeah. So the final part was and listening with the intent to understand.
I
right?
understand.
Because you're just looking around and speaking. I'm trying to give you my full attention here. So the oneness of his divinity will be single out all acts of worship to him alone. So those are the three main aspects of what you call tawheed, affirming his oneness. Just to summarize, sole creator, sustainer of the universe. You can't humanize his names and attributes. You can't deify a human being in terms of his names and attributes. He's the sole creator, and he is one in his divinity, meaning only he deserves worship, which means to love God, to know God, to obey him, and to single all acts of worship to him alone.
All right. So obviously we have a different conception.
Absolutely.
But, no, me and you do.
Yeah.
However, not all Muslims agree with your view, do they?
Yeah. So what? What are you talking to me, bro?
No, I know. I'm talking to you. But what I'm trying to say is that many Muslims don't agree with your view that people, right, human beings, can't do grace. Well, I mean, if you look at the Sufi tradition or the Peers and stuff, people went to them and begged them for intercession. They asked them.
The classical Sufis were never like this.
Right, but the point I'm trying to make is that this view. It's a bit stressful. Yeah, a bit lower. Yeah, a bit better.
Can you hear it? Don't. It makes no difference what other people believe. You're talking to me.
Yeah, I'm talking to you, Hamza,
Yeah.
but the point
So
I'm trying to make
I think
is
what I just showed was our lenses are different.
Yeah, but
and you need to prove to me why your lenses are true.
Okay.
Because you just agreed
I don't need to prove it to you, because
okay, wait.
when we started, I said I'm not going to be able to
But
prove
didn't you
anything to
agree
So
that
there's no
we
need.
view our experiences through certain lenses, right? We have experiences, we see them through a filter for certain lenses. You said, but we're both the same, bro, Tawheed.
Yeah, but
I gave
where
you
did you
concept.
get your lens from?
Let me finish. That's the discussion we should be talking about.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
But once we do
Are you
that,
going to start to prove the Quran to me that it's objectively true and I have to believe in it? Is that what the point?
no, I wasn't going to do that because
Okay.
I do have
but
to
you're
move on
getting
at
it
some
from the
point.
Quran, and therefore you're getting it objectively
Well,
in the Quran.
I believe.
So you start with the. So let me understand it. So I'm just going to summarize many of the arguments I've heard across the.
No, don't do that because that's like
But it seems to start.
That's a red herring.
Okay.
I may not adopt those arguments, dude.